What's the difference between a mare, a gelding, and a stallion? And is there any superior horse gender? Hey, cowboys and cowgirls, and welcome back to the Bitless Podcast. This video is actually recommended by one of you, so hello and thank you so much. Unlike the last very heavy and kind of difficult to digest topics, this one's going to be a lot shorter and a lot less dramatic. So let's get right into it. So, what is the difference between a mare, a gelding, and a stallion? Let's start from the back. A stallion. A stallion is a male horse. Simple as that. A boy, a man, a male horse. A gelding, on the other hand, those are a little bit less fun to explain. Geldings are stallions that can no longer have foals. That means they have been castrated. There are a couple of different ways of castration, but the most common and most simple and widely spread one within the equestrian community is I don't want to get demonetized, but you basically they've lost the right to their cojones. Snip snip, if you know what I mean. And then you have mares. Mares are female horses. And even though there technically are ways to castrate female horses, because it would have to be an internal invasive procedure, it is simply not worth it 99% of the cases, and only done if there is a medical emergency. Unlike a dog or a cat, operations that go inside of the horse's stomach are to be avoided unless necessary to save their life. Cutting a horse's stomach is not only incredibly difficult, the risk of success is scary low. And even if the surgery goes super well, the risk of hemorrhaging, internal bleeding, and even the formation of hernias is way too high to be considered for such a routine surgery like castration. Now that we're already at the topic of mares, let's stick with them. Mares are typically the most demonized of the three, two genders. Does a gelding count as a separate gender? Out of the three, mares are easily the most demonized. They're seen as sassy, as naughty, as opinionated, and difficult. When in reality, that is not true. Mares are just like any other horse, and they can be incredibly sweet. One of the main things I see people struggling to accept with mares is that their personality is going to vary depending on what part of their estrus they're in, aka their heat cycle. Because just like us human women, mare's heat cycle can actually be quite bothersome. Not only do their hormones go awry, they also can experience serious cramping. So their instincts completely flare up, leaving them desperate for the attention of other horses. No wonder they're grumpy. If you have a mare, be prepared to not ride during the worst parts of the heat cycle. Not because you're harming her, but simply because it's extremely uncomfortable. And for the well being of your mare, it really is recommended to just stick to a little bit of groundwork. I always ask people, how would you like it to carry someone that's approximately 20% of your own body weight with an uncomfortable, super tight cinch from a saddle around your tummy? Yeah, no, thank you. Geldings, I think, are the easiest. Even though I'd love to say that there's absolutely no difference personality wise between a mare, a gelding, or a stallion, that just wouldn't be true. Part of what happens in the castration is a change within their hormones because, you know, They no longer feel the drive to mate as strongly as a stallion would. They, lack the proper necessary objects to do so. So, training a gelding can be a lot simpler. They don't need to be treated differently at different times of the month because they won't experience random cramping. They typically behave extremely well around mares because they don't have the need to breed them, even though there are definitely exceptions to that, especially if the castration is done way too late. And the stereotype that geldings are incredibly sweet seems to be true. As someone who has owned both a mare and a gelding before, so far I have to say the stereotypes definitely ring true. While Darcy isn't sassy or mean, she definitely has more opinions than Nori ever did. Let's move on to stallions. Since the original question was which gender would be best for beginners, let's start off the stallion segment by me saying, not this one. This one's not for beginners. No, no stallions for beginners. Stallions are a lot to handle, even for extremely experienced equestrians. Not only because of their hormones, but because of their instincts. Even at a barn where there is not a single mare around, a stallion will typically be more difficult to handle. If you've ever seen those videos of horses fighting in the wild, those are typically bachelor stallions. Mares in the wild and even in herd structures will typically communicate at most through a couple of bites, but 99% of the time with pinned ears and tail swishing and their posture and even their breathing. While stallions communicate with their mouth, their hooves, and a nasty kick. There are countless cases of super aggressive stallions that get posted on TikTok, and everyone's just like celebrating it and thinking that it's normal because they're stallions. Stallions, even though they are a lot to handle and very difficult to train, aren't inherently aggressive. They are not these evil, evil monsters. And with proper help and good training experience, stallions can be the sweetest things ever. But the experience necessary to get them to that point is way more than any beginner will ever have. And admittedly, I don't want a stallion either. I have never worked with stallions before. I've pet one once, but it's not comparable to mares or geldings in the slightest. Not to mention, finding a boarding facility that will actually allow you to board a stallion is really difficult. Now, again, with proper training, stallions can be the sweetest angels ever. And at Darcy's barn, there's a stallion that he gets turned out just normally. They live out 24/7, and he has no issue. But I would not recommend it to 99% of horse owners. Most of us just aren't at that level. So, in conclusion, I think mares and geldings are both fine as long as you are aware of a mare's menstrual cycle and are willing to give her a little bit more time off. If you don't want that, get a gelding. I hope this could clear some. I hope this could clear it up. And if you have any other questions or any other video suggestions, just write it down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.